Hello friends, Renee here, bringing you another astrological update for the week ahead. So as I like to do in these videos, I don't look at a very long period of time. I like to keep it short, sweet and to the point, bite-sized chunks if you will. And this week we have quite the doozy with what is happening in the sky. We have what is called a T-square. So a T-square is when we have three planets that are involved. Two of them are in opposition with each other and the other two are at a square. So it creates a T junction, if you will. And this week we have quite a powerful T square that is happening between the Sun, between Mars and Pluto. So these guys are going to cause some trouble for us. Now, I want to just share with you here. Okay, so on the screen with me here, you can see the chart in question. Now, I've given you the chart for the 20th of April 2025. I've just done it at 12 o'clock in the day on in Durban, where I am. So if you have a look, I've removed all the other planets, I've removed all the other stuff, so just to keep it simple so that you can learn how to read an astrological chart as well. So top center of the chart, you can see we have the Sun, and the Sun sitting at 0 degrees of Taurus. Then we have on the bottom left, I have to get my bearings. On the bottom left, we've got Mars. Mars sitting in the sign of Leo, and it is at 0 degrees of Leo. And then all the way across from Mars, we have Pluto sitting at 3 degrees of Aquarius. So you can see it's not an exact match at the stage because Pluto is already at 3 degrees of Aquarius, whereas the others are at 0. But this T-square is going to unfold over a period of time. Now, there's a couple of things that I want to mention. We've got the Sun in Taurus. We have got the Mercury, Mars in Leo, and we have got Pluto in Aquarius. So what we need to understand about these three is that they are three fixed signs. Okay, they are three fixed signs, which means that they're quite hard-headed. They're quite strong and assertive. They're quite confident. They don't like to change their minds. They don't like to change their actions. They don't like to change their behavior. They tend to stay quite solid and quite assertive and quite fixed in who and what they are. So this, and the fact that we have a T square, the fact that we are hitting this T junction is going to bring this kind of solidarity kind of inspiration to the situation as well. So this is definitely something for us to bring in and to remember when I take you through what this T square is actually going to mean. So let us have a look at it here. So I'm just getting up my notes so that I can take you through it, make sure that I don't miss anything out because it is quite an important one. So as I said, we have a T square which is involving the Sun, it is involving Mars, and it is involving Pluto. This and because the Sun, Mars, and Pluto, those three planets, they're also very powerful planets. I mean, they're all powerful planets, but these guys in particular, they're all about action and change and ambition and power and all of that. Now they're squaring up against each other. So we need to brace ourselves. Before I go into too much detail about this particular T square, I just want to say that this T square, this kind of dynamic with the three of them started around the 16th of April. Okay, so based on the orbs of the planet, in other words, we look at where a planet is and we look at the aura around it, and as soon as those auras start coming into contact with each other, then we know, okay, that the aspect or the transition, the transit is taking place. So this particular transit started around the 16th of April. It's going to hit its closest peak as far as I can see, and I mean, I am just an amateur astrologer, but as far as I can see, it's going to hit its peak around the 23rd of April 2025. And then on the 27th of April, we have the moon that joins in the party, okay? And we have a new moon coming in on the 27th of April, which means if you look at this chart where the Sun is, the moon is going to be right there. So on the 27th of April, the Sun currently on this chart that I have on screen, the Sun is at 0 degrees of Taurus. By the 27th of April, the Sun is going to be, I think it is at about 7 degrees of Taurus, if I remember correctly. And the moon is going to be like right there as well. So, the whole aspect is still in play, but now we have the moon, a new moon that is going to come into to join the party as well. And then by the 30th of April, the T square is over. Everybody's moved in different directions and the aspect lines are no longer applicable. So this, what we're talking about, what I'm explaining to you today, is going to be in effect until around the 30th of April, and we have a new moon that's going to come into play as well. So what we need to understand, okay, when we're looking at multiple planets together, we need to understand that, we look at each of the planets individually. So we look at the sun in Taurus. We look at what does that mean? Taurus being a fixed sign, the sun being our ego, ourselves, our identity, our life force as to who we are. And then we look at each one individually, and then we look at the aspect lines between them. And all of this speaks together in to give us the explanation. So understanding that each planet and each sign brings a unique energy to the particular aspect, which in this particular case creates tension, and it also creates opportunity for transformation. Why? Because Pluto is involved. So one of the things that stood out to me so strongly, with these being three very powerful planets, very strong, very assertive, very dynamic planets, this is going to it's going to bring about tension and major power struggles. So understanding that we've got the strong-willed planets, we've got the strong-willed energies, we've got the square aspect between the sun and Mars and the sun and Pluto, and then we have that opposition between Mars and Pluto as well. So this is going to manifest as struggles for control. This is going to manifest as clashes of ego between people, between situations and circumstances, but it's also going to create this kind of push-pull kind of significance, a push-pull between self-expression and external challenges of life. So when we see a T-square, as this is, T-squares, regardless of what planets are involved, T-squares are generally known for driving action and for driving change. So now we've got this T-square driving action and change between three very powerful planets. So it almost amplifies that energy in a big way. And this particular tension is going to force us all to confront our challenges, to lead us into transformation and growth. Now, transformation and growth are not always easy, not always, a simple walk in the park. Sometimes they can be incredibly challenging and difficult. And I do think that this is what's happening for us at the moment. So I want to just break it down a little bit, because I understand not everybody is an astrologer, not everybody understands. So I'm going to give you step-by-step kind of piece about each one, and then bring it together to hopefully help you understand it a little bit more. So the sun in Taurus generally means that our focus is on stability, our focus is on security, focus is on material values. It's about the desires, and it's about the comforts, it's about the consistency. The sun in Taurus is quite a nice energy. And people who have sun and Taurus are generally, people who are very stable and secure and comfortable. They often surround themselves with the most beautiful things. They often have the most exquisite taste in material possessions and things like that. But being in this particular T-square, it means that the sun in Taurus, this energy is disrupted by the fiery ambition of Mars, because it's got a square aspect to Mars, and the transformative power of Pluto. So now if we look at Mars on its own, so Mars is the planet of ambition. Mars is confidence. Mars is assertive. Mars is I want to say the war maker, okay? Mars is not afraid to get up in your face. Mars is not afraid to cause conflict, because Mars is so strong, so powerful, and so courageous. When we have Mars in Leo, Leo is again all about pride, all about confidence, all about in front, all about leader. So Mars and Leo is a really, really strong combination, which means seeking recognition and wanting to fight to be up ahead, to beat everybody else, to be first, is something that really comes to the fore. And having the square, because Mars has now got a square with the sun and opposition with Pluto, it's going to cause frustration. It's also going to cause us to react impulsively without necessarily thinking things through, which could also cause us some challenges. And then we look at Pluto in Aquarius. Now, I've done videos on Pluto and Aquarius before, as have many, many, many other astrologers. Pluto is going to be in Aquarius for a very, very long time. But Pluto is the planet that brings themes of transformation, brings collective power and innovation. So Pluto in Aquarius is a collective thing that we're all going to experience, but it's the evolution of man. It's the evolution of mankind, okay? The fact that Pluto is in a square with the sun in Taurus, and an opposition with our personal pride in Leo, Mars in Leo, this is going to demand a shift towards a more evolved and collective perspective, because again, Pluto wants us to evolve. Pluto wants us to change, and Pluto will do everything it can to force us to do the changes, to make the changes, to do the things that we need to do. So the things that we can expect over this next week is inner conflict, right? There's going to be this tug of war that we're all going to feel within ourselves between the need for stability, which is the Sun in Taurus, the desire for bold action, which is Mars in Leo, and also the pressure for radical change, which is, again, Pluto in Aquarius. So this can feel quite overwhelming because like we feel as if we're being pushed and pulled in all sorts of different directions, the T-square. We can also find that there's going to be conflicts with other people over things, issues of control, authority, and values. Mars and Pluto are going to amplify and intensify the energies, which could lead to confrontations if the emotions are not handled correctly, carefully. So we need to be careful about that. The tension can also fuel passion. It can also fuel creativity, particularly if the energy is channeled correctly. And that's what I'm focusing on in this particular video, is to help you to channel this energy so that it doesn't cause us to hit that T-junction, that it helps us to just navigate the energy properly. The Sun in Taurus is going to highlight the things that we value, the things that are important to us, the things that bring us a feeling of comfort, a feeling of stability, and a feeling of security. Pluto is going to challenge outdated attachments to things. So if you're holding on to something because of sentimental value, because you've had it for 30 years, this kind of situation is going to cause you to go, actually, it's time to let it go. It's time to let it move on. It's time to whatever. So, and whether you do this voluntarily or not is what this T-square is all about, because you might find yourself being forced to let go of comfort zones in order to embrace new visions. So the best way to navigate the energy of this next week, because literally up until the 30th of April, then this energy has dissipated and disappeared. The first thing that I have to say to you is it's important that you find what we call a release point, okay? Because in a T-square, relief often comes from the missing leg of the configuration. And if you look at this particular chart, okay, so if you look at where the Sun is and you look at where Mars and where Pluto is, and then if you almost finish off the square, all right, so down the bottom there, what do we have down there? We have Scorpio, okay? So if we finish off that square, we've got Scorpio, who is opposite Taurus, all right? And this is the missing leg of the T-square. So relief often comes from the missing leg within a T-square. So this is where Scorpio comes in. And Scorpio is all about focusing on the emotional depth. Scorpio is about transformation. Scorpio is about change. Scorpio is about releasing, letting go, changing in order to bring about a balance. So this is our release point that we need to focus on in order to find the balance and to navigate this energy so that it's not so jarring and not so difficult for us all. Another thing that we can do and should do during this time as well is to practice self-discipline, because both Mars and Pluto's intensity can lead to impulsive actions as well as power plays. So if you stay grounded and if you stay deliberate in your actions, especially when people are provoking you. So if anybody's sort of getting up in your face, the easiest and the best thing for you to do is just to breathe, step back and allow. Stay grounded. Think before you speak. Don't get caught up in that impulsive energy because you will come off second best. Pluto as well, all right? Pluto demands evolution. Pluto spends a long time in a particular sign, and when Pluto is in that sign, collectively there are major shifts that take place. Pluto in Aquarius is interesting, strange, dynamic, unexpected, quirky, all of those kind of things. So we're going through major shifts at the moment as a collective energy. So Pluto wants evolution. Pluto insists that change happens. Pluto doesn't stop until it gets the changes that it wants. So to embrace this particular energy of this T-square, it's important that we reflect on what needs to change within our own lives. Okay, so forgetting about the collective, because we've got the Sun in here, which makes it personal. We've got the Mars, which makes it personal. So it is a personal thing. So reflect on what needs to change within your life, whether it's an outdated habit, whether it's an outdated relationship, or whether it's just outdated perspectives, okay? And then once you've identified the thing that needs to shift within your life at the moment, make a change. Take a step towards that. Do something to embrace and allow that change to take place. And then the other thing that I want to say to you is it's important with this particular T-square this week to balance individual and collective needs. So Pluto in Aquarius tells us that there's a call to align our personal ambitions, which is Mars and Leo, with the greater collective purpose. So it's important that we do balance our own individual needs with those of our community. So, questions that you could ask yourself to help you personally, individually navigate this particular transit this week is to ask yourself, like, where are you resisting necessary changes in your life? Okay, where? You could also ask yourself, how can you assert yourself more confidently without overpowering others? And the third question that you might want to ask yourself is, what outdated values or outdated attachments do you need to release in order to grow? So these are very important questions that you need to focus on. And you know what? The best is to journal them. To journal them, to have a conversation with a friend, a like-minded friend, to just discuss it, or just to be mindful, like every single day, just ask yourself these questions and then pay attention to what's happening in your life so that you can see when these patterns are coming up and say, okay, I recognize this is what it is. And then don't just say, okay, that's what it is. Actually, then do something. Because Mars in Leo wants action. We've got the Sun in Taurus, which wants stability, but we've got Mars in Leo wants action. We've got Pluto in Aquarius wants evolution. So the best way to navigate this energy is to go with the change and to do the things that are necessary. So what I'm going to do now is I have individual horoscopes for each sign of the zodiac. So these are created for sun signs, but I would say more for your rising signs. So if you haven't had your astrology chart done, I suggest you have it done. Get it done somewhere, somehow. Consult your local astrologer and have your astrology chart done so that you understand what your sun sign is, what your rising sign is, etc. Because your rising sign is actually, especially with horoscopes, probably the most important thing for you to focus on. So if you don't know what your rising sign is, just look for your sun sign and you can read the little horoscope for the week ahead, just a little bit of insight. There's a mantra that you can use and you can repeat this mantra to yourself on a daily basis until this transit has cleared. But if you do know what your rising sign is, you can absolutely focus more on your rising sign than your sun sign. So right now I'm going to switch over to let the individual horoscopes play out. So you're going to get your messages for each sign of the zodiac. And then directly after that, we're going to go into doing a very interesting tarot reading. I've created a tarot spread around this T-square. Again, looking at the individual energies, looking at the overall energies, and looking at the impact that it's going to have on you and I. So make sure you stick around for that. So as soon as you have gotten your individual horoscope, navigate fast forward to the to the end of the horoscopes, and I'll be waiting for you there. Right, so let's get into this tarot reading. As I said, this deck that I'm using is the Next World Tarot. I do love this deck. It is just absolutely fantastic. So this is quite a big tarot spread again. I don't do small things. This tarot deck is this tarot spread is going to give us really good insight into what is going on, how to navigate this T-square energy, what it means, and the things that we can get out of it. How do we make it work for us individually and collectively? All right. So I am shuffling the cards. I'm setting the intention, okay, that this spread gives us the insight that we need, the information that we need, the clarity that we need, and just helps us to understand, oh gosh, helps us to understand this particular energy, helps us to understand this particular transit of the T-square, and just helps us to not feel overwhelmed and intimidated by it, but actually how to take advantage. Because, I mean, there really are, I don't know what's going on here. I don't know which way that one goes. There really are some positives from this T-square. And the whole idea is that we take advantage of these opportunities and use them for our benefit. Okay, so what I'm going to do, cards are now shuffled and now I've cut the deck. I'm going to leave the deck over here and I'm just going to draw cards straight off the top and position them in the ways that we need them to. So the first card that I'm drawing straight off the top, this is the card that is going to give us the root energy of this particular situation. Now I'm calling it the root energy, but I'm actually going to place it at the top because if you remember, I showed you the natal chart, the zodiac chart, the horoscope, and I had the sun at the top. So I'm just sticking with that, right? So this is the card that's going to reflect our sun in Taurus. Okay, so the question we're asking here, what is the foundation or the resource in our lives at the moment that provides us stability and security? So, oh, no, I can't pick it up. What provides us stability and security right now? And we have the Death card. How fabulous is that? Okay, it's a water sign, it's Scorpio, and it's Mars in Scorpio. Okay, so I love that, even though it's representing our sun in Taurus. Now, let's talk about the Death card for a second. The Death card is about change. It is about transformation. It is about evolution. It's about letting go of everything that you thought you knew, everything that you thought was important and relevant, and embracing the change that life is bringing about for us right now. And isn't this exactly what I've been saying about this particular T-square? It is here to force us to step forward and to embrace change that we need to. So the other thing I want to say about this particular card representing the sun in Taurus here, the question we can ask is, how do we ground ourselves in the face of challenges? Because again, this transit, this T-square that is happening is going to challenge us. It's going to cause us conflict. It's going to cause us to question our belief systems and to question everything. So how do we ground ourselves in the face of challenges? And I want to say to you, ground yourself by changing, by evolving, by letting go of old antiquated thoughts and actions and belief systems and stepping forward with confidence, with truth, and with recognizing that you are not who you used to be. You are not that person any longer. So it's about recognizing the shift, the changes that have already taken place within you, embracing them and allowing them, trusting them, and getting excited about them. Right, our next card that I'm going to take is the Fire of Action. In other words, Mars in Leo. So this is the card to represent Mars in Leo. And the card that I have is the Page of Wands, which is the home of fire. And didn't I just call this the Fire of Action? And here we have the home of fire, the Page of Wands. So because Mars was down here, I'm trying to create the T-square scenario, because this card was a square aspect. The next one will be a square aspect. So I'm trying to create the T-square here on camera. I don't know if I'm going to succeed, but we're going to try. So the Fire of Action, Mars and Leo, the question we're asking here is, where am I being called to assert my will, or where are we being called to take bold action? How can we balance our courage with compassion in our pursuits? And when we have the Page of Wands, we need to recognize that we are still quite young and naive. We need to recognize that we don't necessarily have all the information. We need to recognize that we've still got a ways to go, okay? There's a lot we do, and we're enthusiastic, we're excited, we're motivated, we've got all the right kind of energies, we've got all the right kind of energies, we've got all the right kind of ambitions and reasoning and rationale, but maybe we don't really know what we're doing, and we need to recognize the naivety that we have. So if we just rush in boldly, if we Mars and Leo too much, we're going to come a cropper. We're going to fall short because we don't actually know what we're getting ourselves into. You must remember as well, we were talking about Pluto being in Aquarius. Yes, it's been in Aquarius for a few months, but we're still going to be in Aquarius for a few years. So the energy of Mars in Aquarius hasn't actually taken hold yet. So this is why this T-square, it's almost like forcing us. We've been hesitant. We've been resisting because, again, human beings don't like change. We resist change. Well, some people resist change. We resist change. Generally, as a collective, we resist change. We're afraid of change. We're nervous. So this is why the Sun in Taurus is telling us we have to change. It is time for us to start stepping up. It's time for us to start embracing the truth of who we are. And the Page of Wands coming through here is basically saying this is our Mars and Leo action. And Mars and Leo action is saying don't be afraid. Understand you do have limitations. You do have restrictions. There's still so much you don't know. But it doesn't mean that you can't start. It doesn't mean that you can't start being more confident, more assertive, getting more enthusiastic, getting more motivated, and doing more. Then our, oopsie, card number 3 that I want to pull, this is another card that's going to represent our Pluto in Aquarius. And this is the power of transformation, okay? And the card that we have here is the Hermit. So it's an earth sign, it's Virgo, and it's Mercury in Virgo as the Hermit. The Hermit is the card of introspection. It's the card of solitude. It's the card of, not wanting to get too involved in other people's chaos and drama, about being more introspective about yourself and what you've been going through and what you've been doing. So we have the Death card, which has a square to the Hermit. We have the Hermit, which has an opposition with our Page of Wands, which also then has a square to the Death card. So again, that's the T-square. So back to our power of transformation with the Hermit card. So what deep transformations or releases are necessary in order for us to grow? We have to be introspective. We have to start looking at ourselves individually, even though Pluto in Aquarius is referring to the collective. But if we don't focus on the individual, and if we don't focus on changing the individual, recognizing that we need to start shifting, if we don't individually start doing that, collectively, we're not going to happen. Okay, because every shift happens on an individual level, which then spirals or blends or moves to an external. But if we're not focusing on the individual, the external collective will never happen either. So how can we embrace change without fear or resistance? Again, by turning in, looking at yourself. We have, when Pluto was in the previous sign, we were all about when Pluto was in Capricorn, we were all about the status quo. We were all about the collective. We were all about status and power and authority and, your fault and look at you and you need to, and you're not good enough because you're not here and you're not there. We were very, very, very judgmental. Very, very judgmental. But now we're in Aquarius. It's a whole different ballgame. Aquarius is more introspective, okay? Even though Aquarius is the rebel and Aquarius wants to make the change and Aquarius is not afraid and Aquarius is bold and confident and all of these kind of things. But it's bold and confident internally, within the self, and then focusing externally. So this is the shift that is taking place. And this is the T-square that we are dealing with at the moment. So the next card I'm going to draw is actually to talk about this opposition, because we understand the square, but to me this is remember we were talking about the missing leg earlier on. We were talking about how Scorpio is the missing leg. So I want to talk about the opposition between these two specifically, okay? So card number 4 is the internal external conflict that we are facing. So what is the external versus the internal conflict that we are facing, and how can we resolve the tension between our drive for power and our desire for progress? So let's have a look and see. This is the opposition between Mars and Pluto. And here we have the 5 of Wands, which is a key word of strife, and it is Saturn in Leo. So if you look at what's happening around her, on the wall behind her, she has a whole bunch of really nasty things. I mean, from poisons to axes to whatever else. So she's like chaos waiting to happen. She's like drama waiting to happen. She is her own worst enemy. And this is exactly what that 5 of Wands is. I like to call 5 of Wands the chaos and conflict card, because there is just so much chaos and conflict going on. So what we're looking at here with this particular card as the opposition between these two, this conflict between these two, between the outer and the inner, the external and the internal. So what is the conflict? Well, this is the thing exactly. We're all uncomfortable. We're all dealing with chaos in our lives at the moment. Absolutely. I do not know a single person whose life is perfect. I do not know a single person whose life is perfect. Everybody is facing something. But how many of us are admitting it? How many people are being honest with themselves and honest with their families and honest with their communities about the struggles that they're dealing with? No, everybody's on this pretend mode. Everybody's like, no, 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 I'm fine, I'm fine. But actually, no, nobody is okay. And if we don't start embracing this change, if we don't start realizing how young and naive and innocent we are, even though we have desire, and if we don't start being more introspective, we're never going to get out of this cycle of chaos that we're in. We're all in a cycle of self-destruction. We're all in a cycle of chaos at the moment, but it needs to shift. It needs to change. And this T square that we are having at the moment is definitely not the first, but it's definitely one of those big buttons that we are pushing that's going to jump us forward if we're prepared to do the work. So the next card that I'm going to draw is the central challenge. Now, I ideally wanted to put it in the middle, but it's not going to fit, so I'm just going to stick it off to the side here. But this is the central challenge of this particular T square. In other words, what is the key lesson or the challenge that we can all take away from this particular thing? And there we have self-sufficiency. I mean, come on, guys, I can't make this stuff up. I honestly and truly cannot make this stuff up. Nine of Pentacles is what I like to refer to as, the opulence card. It's the card of excess. It's the card of just having everything your heart desires and then some. It's the card of more than, okay? And asking the question of what is the key lesson or what is the key challenge that we can take away from this particular T square. We all want a better life. We all want a happier life. We all want a life of self-sufficiency. I mean, come on, who doesn't? We all do. Everybody wants it. But we're so stuck here in the cycle of self-destruction, we're never going to get there. So this situation, this T square, is forcing us, ready or not, here it comes, forcing us to look at our lives, look at our situations, look at our circumstances, and to start speaking the truth of what needs to be spoken. Okay? To start speaking the truth of what needs to be spoken. And this is what potentially awaits us. This is what we have to look forward to if we are brave enough, confident enough to make the changes that are necessary. Okay, so card number 6. Card number 6 is the creative solution. Okay, so this is the creative solution. This is the unique or innovative approach that we can take to harmonize the energies. So how can we integrate stability, action, and transformation effectively? Okay, because that's what we've got: stability, action, and transformation between those three. So how can we integrate these effectively, and what is the unique or creative approach that we need to take in order to get ourselves out of this and into this situation? And here we have the Empress. She is all about love. She is all about abundance. She is all about creating life. This is why we have the Death card. Because what is death? Death is the letting go of one aspect of yourself in order to embrace and accept and to take on the next aspect of yourself. The Empress comes along and she gives life. She gives love. She gives happiness. She nurtures. She's the one. She's the I want to say Mother Gaia. She brings life to this world. She nurtures life on this world, but she also understands that we have to go through strife in order to feel bliss, happiness, and joy. That if we don't experience strife, we're never going to get there. Because if you don't experience negative and hard and difficult and challenges, how can you value and appreciate that which you really have? So the creative solution here: how do we integrate the stability of the Sun and Taurus, the action of Mars and Leo, with the transformation of Pluto and Aquarius effectively? How do we integrate this effectively? By allowing ourselves to nurture, to love, to grow, to initiate, to develop new habits, new methods, new systems, and new processes. If we don't give life, to our lives, then it's never going to change. So it's all about us taking the initiative. It's all about us doing the work that needs to be done. So if we don't do the work that needs to be done, then it's never going to happen. It's never going to develop the way that it needs to. And then our final card, which is talking about the path forward. All right, the path forward. So what guidance does the universe offer us right here and right now? What else does Spirit need us to know in order to help us navigate through this? How do we embrace the energy of the Empress? How do we embrace the energy of the Death card, the Hermit card, and the Page of Wands? How do we align with our highest potential through this transit? And the answer is the Nine of Wands. Check out the keyword. Again, guys, I cannot make this stuff up. We have the keyword of resilience. Look at this lady. Now she's sitting on her bed. She's got all her music equipment behind her. She's got all of these guitars. I mean, quite the collection, right? And here she's playing. Just because she owns all of those guitars doesn't mean she's a master guitar player. But through her resilience of practice and determination and doing it again and again and again and again, it's her resilience that's going to make her into a phenomenal guitar player. It's not the volume of guitars. So it's like me having all these hundreds of tarot decks doesn't make me automatically an amazing tarot reader. It's the constant learning and trying and doing and whatever that gets us there. So the path forward for us, the path forward for you, and the path forward for me. What guidance does Spirit have? What can Spirit say to us? How do we align our highest potential through this particular challenge? And it's about perseverance, it's about being resilient, and it's about not giving up. But it's about understanding and embracing the change that is necessary, recognizing that we don't have all the knowledge yet, we don't have all the know-how, all the information. We're still noobs, right? We're still noobs, especially with the way life is at the moment, the way the world is at the moment. There's still so much to learn. There's still so much to understand. There's so much to grasp. And there is still so much that needs to be done. Yes, we're enthusiastic. Yes, we want to do it. But we mustn't rush in blindly, because if we rush in blindly, we are going to find ourselves in trouble. We need to be more introspective in understanding the situation, in understanding ourselves in this particular situation. We need to get out of this negative mindset, because we are in a terrible negative mindset. What waits us is self-sufficiency. If we can evolve and change and be resilient and keep coming back for more and doing it better and doing it differently and improving, while focusing on love, while focusing on regeneration, while focusing on bringing life to this world, then we will be so resilient, we will be so strong, we will be so amazing, and everything will be absolutely fantastic. So friends, there's a lot of work for us to do. And I know that this particular tarot spread is just for this week. I mean, this transit, this T-square, it's happening now. Like I said, it finally goes out of orbit on the 30th of April. So it started on the 16th. So it's literally like a 2-week cycle. It hits in a big way this week, which is why I'm focusing on it. So this means that what I'm giving you now is just for this week. Focus on this for this week. Don't worry about, oh, next month, next year. Focus on this week. Like, let's keep it small. Let's do bite-sized chunks as to what we need to do individually to make a change positively for the collective. And this is what this is all about. So, if you know of anybody who is struggling with change, if you know anybody who is struggling with a mental mindset, send them this video. Get everybody to see this, get everybody to understand this message. Because if we can all make one little change within ourselves during this week, we are collectively amplifying the big changes that need to happen on our earth. But it requires love, unconditional love, trust, growth. And we need to be resilient. We need to constantly change, constantly evolve, constantly reinvent ourselves. And this week is so, so, so important that we do that. So I wish you the most amazing week. Take care of yourselves. Sending you all so much love and so many blessings. Thank you for being with me. Thank you for your love and support, and chat to you all again soon.